Asmongold explains why he hates Christianity right now. And then they quote here, Christianity has been co-opted by post-liberal globalist BS. I like the idea of Christianity of the Crusades. I think that's great. I don't like nowadays, so I want to hear this full clip here. Let's see.
This is the reason why I said that I would go back to the church if we had another crusade. It's because this is precisely why I hate Christianity right now. Christianity it has been co-opted by post-liberal globalist bullshit. I like the idea of Christianity of like the Crusades. I think that's great. I don't like now.
I need to find. Does anybody know what stream this is from? Because I'd love to watch this whole like section here. So Christianity of the Crusades, I don't think was really that great. And I'm saying this as an Orthodox person because we lost a lot of Orthodox Christians in the Crusades. And I don't hate the Catholics. I don't hate Roman Catholics. But they kind of turned their back on like Constantinople and all of Byzantium. So the Crusades weren't that great. I mean, sure, the aesthetic looks cool, but you know, it's not about the aesthetic. It was about fighting, you know, the Muslims and what was it? Was it the Ottomans as well? Basically, the people tried to destroy us and that killed a bunch of, you know, Christians. That was like the point, to fight back against them. It was a holy war. And it's really tragic, though, what happened to a lot of, you know, Orthodox Christians during this time, which is why I'm like, I would not like to go back to the Crusades for that very reason. There was a lot of betrayal at some point and a lot of bloodshed that probably didn't have to happen within the Christian circles at that time. But I will say that whether you guys like Asmon or not, whether you agree with his statement or not, I do think that Christianity, especially on the Protestant side, this is where my reply comes in, and where I might have gotten into some trouble with some people, is this. So I said, part of the reason I left Protestantism is because a lot of it has been overrun by those looking to subvert the populace by destroying Christianity. It's not to say the average person within Protestantism doesn't love Christ or isn't seeking him. However, the fullness of Christianity is found in Eastern Orthodoxy. Our traditions have kept us grounded for 2,000 plus years, despite persecution. Subversion is really difficult to pull off in comparison. I do believe in order for there to be unity within Christianity, we have to unite in theology as well, because it informs how we walk in our walks, and it shows true unity. Not only that, the church Christ left us is not only spiritual, but visible as well, with traditions that help us get closer to him. And I got a lot of disagreements. I know that most of my audience is still Protestant, or it might be more like half and half now, or maybe it's 30-30-30. I have no idea what the numbers are. But I would say that subversion is just very clear within Protestantism. A lot of CIA, a lot of government agencies have infiltrated, especially like evangelical circles. And some people are like, oh, but you know, evangelicals and non-denoms aren't Protestant. And I think they are. I think that regardless of how you feel, they did come from the reformers at some point. You know, these people were practically like, these different groups were like killing each other because of their differences in beliefs. And so, you know, with Protestantism, I mean, it boils down to protesting the Catholic Church, I think, in the simplest way to put it. And like, it sucks. It really does. But that doesn't mean that, you know, government agencies haven't infiltrated these circles, especially the CIA. Like, I have watched a lot of Jade Eyre, but I've also kind of looked into it myself, and how these global, you know, institutions have used, you know, Christianity to try and pervert and pollute the more traditional messages that we've had for thousands of years at this point. So people have become too soft. I think Christianity's become very feminized in the West. And I'm not saying that, you know, we should be supreme overlords over people, because that's not how Christianity works. But I think that it's become too lenient. We've become too accepting of people and their sin. And we haven't truly fought back, you know, in the sense of, you know, using, or not using, but rather proclaiming, you know, what's in scripture, what's been clarified for a very long time now, especially when it comes to things like the LGBT. And I'm not saying that Orthodoxy doesn't have these issues, but it's definitely not as prominent as it is on the Protestant side. A lot of LGBT rainbow mafia people have unfortunately taken over, even in the more high church circles. This is mostly for like Lutherans and Episcopalians, you guys, and even Anglicans, right? They have a lot of female leadership, female pastors, I don't know, even female clergy. It's really weird. Again, Orthodoxy doesn't really have these issues to that degree. And I think that people getting upset at me think that, oh, you think that Orthodoxy is perfect. No, we're people too. We have our problems. But I think because we're so grounded in the tradition of the apostles and the early church fathers, that we're kind of the last bastion. And again, I'm not here to question anybody's love for Christ. Like I mentioned in my statement, I don't feel that way. I think you guys very much love Jesus. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the people who are representing on the Protestant side, especially people you guys call leaders, you know, that they're doing a good job. They're not doing a very good job. And it shows, and then it bleeds into your theology, right? To be more accepting of things that not supposed to, very humanist, all that other stuff. So I think that it can change, but I think people need to step up, start getting some leaders removed, and start, you know, kind of reverting back to more traditional forms of Christianity. And not everyone's going to come to Orthodoxy, but at the very least, if we can start pushing out, you know, these very clear agendas that the outside is having on us, like the LGBT, for example, that's going to be very, very crucial into kind of taking back the fight. And sure, we can argue separation of like church and state, but I think it was more so to protect the church from these outside influences of government and such. But I don't know. It's rough out here, man. But I definitely think that Asmon should come to Christianity. I do pray that he comes to the Lord at some point. And I think that I know he used to be Catholic, so he should probably look at, well, I don't know. Maybe, I think he would be better off in Orthodoxy, to be really like honest, because Catholics have their problem with Vatican II and a lot of ecumenism, and unfortunately, some LGBT stuff creeping in there gradually there. And I don't know. I mean, if he does go back to Catholicism, that would be cool too. I'd be totally cool with that too. But we can't expect to go back to the time of Crusades or Byzantium or, you know, the Roman Empire or anything like that. That's unrealistic. It's never going to happen. And, you know, we got to focus on the present and how we can have kind of like a spiritual crusade, I would say, not an actual where we're, you know, eliminating people, because I don't think Christ is calling us to do that. Obviously, we should defend ourselves, but we need more people to be serious about their faith. We need leaders to be held accountable, regardless of what, you know, sect of Christianity you may be part of. And people need to be more on fire for their faith, but truly not just saying, you know, I love Jesus and screaming it off the rooftops, but being theologically sound and being able to, even if it's like on a more basic level, right? Because if you're a layperson, you're not expected to know like 10 years of theology inside and out. Those are very few people who are able to do that. But truly like living it, being kind. I think one of the great things about being Orthodox is that, you know, we don't have to be out in the streets evangelizing 24/7, but rather through our actions and how we treat others, let that testimony speak really loud. And that would be an ideal route, I think, to go. And not being afraid of being canceled when we're online, to stand up for biblical values, to not be affirming. We can still be loving towards people who, you know, don't share our beliefs or who are not living, you know, a Christ-like life. But that doesn't mean affirm and say like, yeah, you can still be this and you'll be fine. No, we have to be honest. Like, you know, God does not want you to live this way, but there is hope in him. He doesn't force you, but, you know, to be Christian means to like die to yourselves, you know, but still showing them love, you know, showing them support. You know, when they're down, listen to them. When they're around, you know, pray for them, tell them that you're praying for them and things like that, I think would help a lot. But I'm curious to see what you guys are saying in the chat. I hope that what I said makes sense. I could go through all of these responses. I have a couple friends who I love very dearly who are still Protestant. And I know that they...
So kind of like the Billy Graham crusade back in the day for the spiritual crusade.
Billy Graham? I mean, I don't know about that, because I've never really heard of that. But sure, yeah, like a sort of spiritual crusade, I think would be really important. But I think it would have to be one that isn't like overly aggressive, over the top, because that will definitely turn more people away than it will bring them in. And it's hard. It's really hard to balance that, because a lot of people will take even the kindest sentiment that you may have, or the most kindest wording that you may have, and they'll twist it and say that, oh, you're being a bigot, oh, you're being a homophobe, oh, you're being this. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm just sharing my beliefs with you and hope that you come to Christ at some point. So yeah, these are a lot of responses. I'm curious to know what you guys think, and if you want to respond to that. I got a lot of disagreements because, again, most of my friends and people who follow me are Protestant, but I do appreciate their views nonetheless. Helps me kind of ground myself in my own and to learn how to explain it a bit better so that people don't feel like I'm attacking them, which is never my intention. My intention is never to attack anyone, but I do know that disagreements can come across that way. So hopefully we should be good there. But if anybody has like the full clip of this, we can definitely go ahead and watch it. If you guys know what stream this is, I don't know. I'm assuming this is something that he said yesterday or the day before. Nico said, you can recognize salvation through the fruits of the grace, but salvation is through grace alone. Work and action is just a natural effect of grace. I wouldn't say I fully agree with that. But I think I see what you're trying to say. Asmon has admitted that he doesn't research the issues he claims because he knows psychology. He doesn't know anything else. Asmon is a degenerate heretic as he doesn't know what he's talking about, says Elder. I think he does need to research. This sentiment isn't just shared by him. It's shared by different people, even within the Christian spaces, especially more like high church Christian sects. But I definitely do think that he needs to like look deeper into Christianity for sure, especially if he doesn't understand the current issues and climate that we're facing. But I think it's gotten to the point where it's pretty obvious that Christianity has had a serious decline. And I'm not talking about numbers, because numbers, it's still, I think, the biggest, if not one of the biggest religions in the world. I think there's been a very big moral decline. And it's not just one sect of Christianity, it's all of them. Some much more than others, but overall, I think that there has to be a shaking of people. I think that we need to really like narrow down and like laser focus, because even if we don't know the exact end date of this world, that doesn't mean that we're gonna live forever, right? Because Christ could come like 20 years from now, or 50, let's say, and pretty much all of us are gone at this point, right? For our own salvation and for helping others, hopefully achieve salvation, we need to be serious, because again, we only have this one shot, guys. We only have this one shot in this life, and we got to make the best of it. And there's so many people who desperately need it to. So it's not a game. Like, people's souls are not a game. Our own souls are not a game. This life is not a game. We can live frivolously like the world wants us to. But as Christians, I think that we know better. We know better than to do that, because time is so precious and it's so limited, and we don't know when we're going to close our eyes. We want to make sure that we live that godly life, not only for ourselves and for our family and friends, but for others in the world to see, and hopefully, embrace Christ at some point, for sure. And that's one way to fight, for sure, is, trying to live that narrow path, right? The Bible and the Gospels, it talks about that narrow road, and that most people take the wide gate that leads to destruction. And it's not easy, man. It's not easy at all, no matter which way you slice it. And God didn't promise us that it would be easy. And I think that it's good that it's not easy. I think when things are easy, you don't value it. You don't respect it. You don't love it. And I think when things are hard, it forces you to stop and to reflect. And so I think that Asmon, is someone who can stop and reflect. Why he might choose not to, I don't know. But I think that with Christianity, if he really stopped and reflected on it, and he already agrees that Christianity is better for Western culture, I see no reason for him not to live as a Christian. To be really honest with you, I see no reason for him not to come to Christ. But the thing is with people like Asmon is that he may appreciate the tenets and the reward, but I don't think he appreciates the process, or thinks that, there is no greater power or whatever. And let's be honest, if we leave it up to humans, we will choose destruction probably 8 to 9 times out of 10. And without God, we're gonna end up choosing destruction more than not. But when we choose him and we are transformed by him, it's less of an issue. So I really hope he does think about it. I hope he prays about it. And, at the very least, he starts watching other Christian creators. I don't know if you guys know about Tectone, but Tectone, I think in the last year or so, we're coming up on Charlie's death if we haven't passed it already. And I know that shook Tectone up, and he decided to come back into Eastern Orthodoxy. I don't know how his walk has been when it comes to that. I think he keeps it relatively private, but he did get married actually in the last couple days. I hope he had an Orthodox wedding, but I would love if Tectone talked to Asmon about faith. I think that would be really cool, especially since they're up there. They're big creators. They understand each other probably more than I'd ever understand either of them. But I don't know. I think Asmon's life would be much better if he just embraced Christianity, to be honest. The problem with your reply, Celeste, is you can only have evangelicals, Protestant. There are only 3 Protestant denominations. I mean, that's what some argue, but if you're talking about like classical Protestantism, I guess, but I'd consider evangelicals to still be Protestants because you're still protesting, the Catholic Church overall. But I know some people said like, oh, it's just Lutheran, Anglican, Reformed circles that are Protestants. And I mean, sure, you're the original group of Protestants, but that doesn't mean that these other groups aren't. But I guess if you want to consider non-denominational, it's all a thing, I suppose. Church of England has definitely been captured. Yeah, no, it's been pretty bad for you guys. I feel really bad for the Church of England.
Was a Protestant pastor that went around preaching Christ, and I think back in the 50s, 70s he had crusades to bring people to Christ.
Oh,
My
that's
aunt
insane.
And uncle were saved at them.
Oh, wow. I did not hear that. That's really interesting. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're always in a spiritual crusade, but I think we need to be more intentional. I think intentionality is like what we're lacking overall nowadays. Revian Core said, I have my own personal beliefs that aren't connected to any single one. Everything experienced to this point will continue to experience. Huh? Nico says he lives in South America. There's no Orthodox church. If I want to be part of the church, I have to choose between Catholicism and Protestantism. That's interesting. Yeah, I know in South America they don't have like a lot of parishes. I mean, it's already like not much in America in comparison to other denominations, but Mac and Cheese says we absolutely can have a new crusade. I'd argue we should have a new coalition between all denominations to crusade for the protection of Christians in Africa and the Middle East. Christians are literally being in the region. I mean, that's true. There are a lot of Christians that are in the Middle East and Africa getting destroyed by Islam, unfortunately, and other barbaric people around them, and it's truly sad. And people say, oh, you Christians, you think you're being persecuted. I mean, maybe not in the West yet, but definitely in like the Middle East, a lot of Christians cannot openly practice their faith, or else they are threatened with their lives, which a lot are willing to die for their faith. And it's amazing, but it is rough. Christians are in fact being persecuted across the world. It's not up for debate, I think.